Okay guys, so I want to show you a brand who's absolutely killing it on Amazon because we can all learn a lot from these guys. And one of the things that they are so good at is creating incredible listings. So the brand I want to show you is called Anker, and you guys may have heard of these guys before. You may have even bought some products from them before. And what I want to look at specifically is this power bank listing of theirs, because in this listing, and actually all of their listings, they do three things differently to other sellers. And I want to show you what these three things are so that you can actually implement these things in your listing as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is image size. So I've just come to one of their competitors' product listings, and what you can see is that they use square images. And the majority of sellers on Amazon do this. They use square images in their listing. However, if I take you back over to Anker, what you can see is that instead of square images, what they do is they use rectangular images. So they are longer than a standard square image. Now on desktop, this doesn't really do anything. It does make the image very slightly bigger, but it's not really noticeable. If I flick between kind of this image and this image here, let me see if I can get it. There we go. If I flick between these two images, you can see that they're pretty much the same size, right? It doesn't actually make the image any bigger on desktop. Where it does have an impact is on mobile. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you both of these two listings on mobile next to each other. And what you can see is the Anker images look much larger. Both images from left to right take up the same amount of screen, but because the Anker images are rectangle and more similar to the shape of a phone, so more suited to portrait instead of landscape like it is on desktop, you can actually see that it actually takes up more of the screen on mobile than a square image and its competitors' square images. So what Anker are doing is they're basically tailoring their image size to be optimized for mobile. And the reason why this is important is at the moment, about 50% of all sales, clicks and sales on Amazon happen on mobile. And this is something that in my opinion is going to continue to increase and increase. I think if we're looking at this in about 5 years time, it's going to be over 60%, maybe even more than that happening on mobile. People are shifting away from using desktops to using mobile much more for making online purchases, and this is a trend that's been going up and kind of changing over time. Now I know what you're probably thinking, right? Okay, cool, they've optimized their images for mobile, it's a bit bigger on mobile, but is that really going to have any impact on sales? And I would say yes, it is. And the reason for this is that the buying process isn't just a rational process, it's an emotional process. So when you're really making any decision, whether it's a purchasing decision or a different type of decision, there's always kind of two sides of your brain. There's the rational side of your brain that's looking at the facts, and then there's the emotional side of your brain, which happens at a more subconscious level, which also has a big impact on that decision making. And sellers who understand how this buying psychology works and therefore can create images that actually trigger that emotional response are the ones that perform really well. And this is things like using certain colors in their images, focusing on the benefits instead of the features, using lifestyle images so the customer can actually see themselves using the product. Those are the kind of sellers that perform really well. And this principle doesn't just apply to buying on Amazon or even buying a product. It relates to all decisions. So for example, right, I had a property developer in the flat above me, and he basically renovated the whole flat. And then before he sold it, he got a company in to stage it, to dress it and stage it. So put in furniture, put up wall art, all of that stuff. And he paid about £4,000 to do that. And I remember having a chat with him and asking him why. And what he was explaining was that basically when you stage a flat, it sells much quicker. And that's because people looking around it, it triggers that emotional response. They can imagine themselves using the space, living in the space. Whereas when there's no furniture, that emotional kind of response just doesn't happen, and they're less likely to convert. So if purchasing decisions were just rational, it wouldn't make any difference whether there was any furniture in the flat or not, or you're using a rational brain. But because there's also an emotional side to it, those kind of things have a really big impact. And that's the same thing with image size. You may not think it makes much of an impact. When you're looking at these two listings side by side, because that's what happens, most customers will compare a few different products. Anker's listing looks more sleek, more premium because the images fit better on the screen and take up more of the space. And because they look sleeker and more premium, it triggers that emotional response, and something on a subconscious level makes you feel that the product's going to be more sleek and premium, more desirable, and therefore you're more likely to buy it. So even just a really small tweak like this can actually have a big impact on conversion rate. The second thing I want to talk about is what's included in these images and how they're actually put together. So the average seller on Amazon will highlight loads of different key points in one image, and they'll also just use too much text. So for example, there'll be one image showing the product, and then there'll often be lines coming off that highlighting lots of different key points. So they might say that the battery is 10,000 mAh. There may be another point that says that is USB-C cable integrated into it. There may be another point that says it has 30-watt charging capabilities. all of these highlighted on one image. Now, the issue with this approach is to do with the way that people actually shop on Amazon. So when people shop on Amazon, they're looking at a listing, they'll flick through the images really quickly. And what you need to do, what your goal is with these images, is that you need to convey your key selling features, the key messages you want to tell the customer very, very quickly in a very clear and concise way. And because they flick so quickly through those images, if you have too much information or too much text, so you're highlighting lots of different things on one image, what happens is the customer is not going to stop and read through all of those points and take it in. They flick through it quickly, and if there's too much, they just don't take in that information and they just don't understand all of the key points that you want to tell them about your product. Instead, if you just highlight one key message per image, keep it super clear and concise with minimal text, when customers are actually flicking through your images, there's much less information on each image. They take in the information much quicker. They understand the key selling features and benefits about your products much more clearly, and therefore they're more likely to convert. And that's exactly what Anker do. They highlight one key message per image, they keep it super clear and concise, and they highlight both the feature and the benefit. And let me show you what this looks like. So if we look at Anker's second image here, all they're highlighting is one key message. They're just telling us in this image how quickly this charger can charge a phone. So what they highlight is two things, both the feature and the benefit. The feature is that this has 30-watt charging capabilities, and the benefit that that feature brings to the customer is that it charges the iPhone from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes. And then they actually have an image that shows the point that they're trying to make. So a minimal text with a clear, concise image that shows what they're trying to convey. In this image here, they just focus on the fact that the charger has a built-in USB-C cable. That's it. In this image here, all they focus on is the size of the battery, so how many charges it can do for an average phone. In this image here, they just focus on how quickly the battery can be recharged. And on this one, they just focus on compatibility. That's it. So what a lot of sellers would have done here is that they would have highlighted all of these features and benefits in a single image. But by breaking it up like this, when a customer quickly flicks through these images, they have a much less information to actually take in per image, so they take in that information much more quickly and efficiently when they're flicking through those images quickly, and therefore they're more likely to convert. The other thing that they do that's great is that they don't just focus on the features. So obviously when you are building a product, when you're developing a product, you care about the features. So features would be things like 30-watt charging, or a feature would be that it's 10,000 mAh. Those would be features. But what you've got to remember is that the customer doesn't really care about the features. What the customer cares about is the benefit that those features bring them. So all of the features in a product are there to bring a benefit to the customer. So for example, 30-watt charging capabilities, what's the benefit? The reason why you care about that is because the benefit that it brings to the customer is that it charges a phone quickly. The benefit of having a big 10,000 mAh capacity is that it does multiple charges for your phone. And what the customer cares about is the benefit, not the features. So it's really important to highlight either just the benefit or both ideally, but don't just focus on the features. And this is what Anker does so well. They understand their customer base. They understand that some of their customers are going to be people who are not particularly techie and just care about the benefit and don't even understand what the feature means, which is a lot of people. It probably includes me. And then they understand that also some of their customers are going to be tech people who do care about the features. So they actually highlight both. And this image is a perfect example. So they highlight the feature, which is that it charges at 30 watts for those people who care about those features and understand them, people not like me. And then what they highlight for people like myself is the benefit of that feature, which is that it charges an iPhone 15 from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes. So if we come back to the competitor listing, you can see that this is an example of too many things being highlighted in one image. They're highlighting that it's Type-C wired charging, 15-watt wireless charging, it's got a strong magnet, and that it's 10,000 mAh all in one image. Now, looking at this image, if you weren't thinking about that psychology behind how people shop on Amazon and the way that how quickly they actually look through images, you would think that this is probably quite a good image. But actually, there's too much information here for the customer to take in. Instead, what Anker have done, they've basically taken those kind of four things and they split them over individual images, and this works much better. Now, the third thing that Anker do differently to other sellers is to do with what kind of things are highlighted, what key messages are highlighted in their images and bullet points. what a lot of sellers will do is they'll actually highlight different key messages, different key selling features and benefits in their images and their bullet points. And to me, this just doesn't make any sense, right? If something is so important that you want to highlight it in your images, why would you not highlight it in your bullet points? If something's so important to highlight in your bullet points, why not highlight it in your images? Instead, what you should be doing is highlighting the same key features and benefits in your images and your bullet points. They should basically be a mirror reflection of each other, one in image format and the other in written word format. So if we come back to Anker's listing, you can see that they've done exactly that. So in this image, they highlight that it has a USB-C cable integrated into it. If we look at the top bullet point, it says built-in USB-C cable. The next bullet point says 30-watt bidirectional charging. We can see that they highlight that here and also here. In this image, we can see that they're highlighting that it's a 10,000 mAh battery. Again, they highlight that in this image, and so on. If I was creating this listing, the only thing that I would personally change here is I think that Anker focuses a little bit too much on the features, and instead I would lead with what I call a benefit first approach. So with these bullet points, I wouldn't lead with the feature. Instead, I would lead with the benefit, and I would normally capitalize this, and then I'd capitalize the benefit, and then I would talk about the feature that leads to the benefit. Now, the reason why they may not have done this is because it's a tech product, and they may feel that the majority of their customers are interested in the features, but for the majority of kind of non-tech products, you generally want to lead with the benefit first in your bullet points. Now, in my opinion, the reason why a lot of new sellers try and highlight too much in their images is because they're just trying to tell the customer too much about the product across all of their images, and they're just trying to cram too much information in. And the reason for that is because you haven't been concise about what you're deciding to tell the customer. So a really great exercise to do when you're deciding on what kind of things to highlight is get a pen and paper, make a list of all of the key features that you think the customer needs to know about your product, all of the key selling features, and then draw a little line, and next to each feature, write the benefit that that feature brings to them. Then you're going to probably end up with a list of 10 plus things. What you want to do is work through that list and whittle it down to the 5 most important features and benefits. Then once you've got those kind of final 5, you want to highlight one of those features and benefits in each image and one of them in each of your bullet points. So the same 5 in your images and bullet points, again, so that they are a mirror reflection of each other. Keep it simple and concise, and for most products, you really want to focus on the benefit and kind of lead with the benefit. So the title of each image should really be the benefit. Then you can talk about the feature somewhere else in the image, or lead with the benefit in the bullet point and then talk about the feature later on in the bullet point. And once you've done that, you can also consider using rectangular images as well to be optimized for mobile. And if you do all of those things, I can guarantee you're going to see a big increase in conversion rate. So yeah, this is a little bit different to the content that I usually make, but hopefully you guys found it helpful, found it useful. If you did, let me know in the comments, give the video a like, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.